Things need to be shaken up around here. It's time to shake them up. It's time for a new Raw. It's time for a new SmackDown. By God, it's time for a new WWE.
Damn right, Vince, I completely agree. It is 100% time to shake things up again. Alright folks, what's the crack? Welcome back. And here's a little fantasy draft for you. While everyone is in the mood, looking forward to the draft in July, let's go through it and pick apart who might go where, and hopefully we will get something good. Here is the list that I'll be working on. I'll be putting the Divas on one show and the tag teams on another, so don't worry, there'll be nothing getting broken up in this particular draft. But that's the list we'll be working off of. So without further ado, let's get straight into this, not wasting any time. I think the very first place to start is probably the GM. So let's start at the GM. Who's going to be GM of Raw? Who's going to be GM of SmackDown? Well, I think it makes sense. They want to load SmackDown with the people that you want to see. Raw will always get the viewership. We're going to keep that in mind the whole time here. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Stephanie is going to get Raw. For reasons perfectly understandable, in 2 seconds, Shane, as you'll see, is going to get SmackDown, in my opinion. Why is this? Because a lot of the fans, myself included, maybe yourself as well, they want to see Shane, and they will tune into a show if they know that that's the only place they're going to get to see him, and that, in my opinion, is going to be SmackDown, to give them more views, to give viewers like me incentive to watch. So that's why I think SmackDown will again be Shane O'Mac's. Okay, so moving on to the actual main rosters themselves. Obviously, I think it goes without saying, Roman Reigns, the guy, whatever you want to call him, will be the face of Raw going forward. It makes sense in a way, I suppose it really does. So Reigns on Raw is obvious. That means I will agree with all the dirt sheets at the moment. I think SmackDown will be John Cena's home in the future. They can play off of the fact that he started his career in SmackDown and now he's come full circle and back to SmackDown again. And again, it gives him a place where he can be front and center like they like to do. Back to Raw, and every big face of the company needs a big heel to fight against, and the biggest heel right now is obviously Seth Rollins. It makes perfect sense for Rollins and Raw to be on Raw together, and they'll be able to feud over the WWE title there. We'll get the titles later on, but for now, let's keep going. And I'm going to throw the Wyatts on SmackDown just as a big evil heel faction, just to kind of run roughshod over SmackDown kind of, and also to maybe play off Cena. Who knows what feuds they'd get into. Maybe they can dominate SmackDown as the main heel faction. And I'm going to also put every single tag team on SmackDown. The tag team division, the whole tag team division, no tag teams are getting broken up. They all move over to SmackDown. So if you want to see the tag teams, you want to see Enzo and Cass, you want to see the Dudleys, the New Day, whoever it may be, they're on SmackDown. Leading into that, we're going to put the Club and AJ Styles all on Raw. This will become a bit more clearer later on, but for now, the Club and AJ, they're big draws, so in my opinion, they should go on Raw. In saying that as well, before with the tag team division, we're going to put the whole Divas division on Raw. Every single one of them fighting for one title. We're not going to split them on Raw and SmackDown and make two women's titles. We're going to put them all on Raw like they were back in the day and have them fight for the women's title on Raw. So you have the two main titles on Raw. Okay, we're going to start filling out the SmackDown mid-card now, starting with Darren Young, Goldust, Truth, Titus O'Neil, Tyler Breeze, Zack Ryder, and maybe the most notable name there, Apollo Crews. Hopefully he can get some traction on SmackDown. So we're going to start giving Raw its upper mid-card now, starting off with Sheamus. Solid pick, can't go wrong there. Neville, of course, has been out for a while. It's coming back soon. Hopefully when he comes back, he can get a good solid push on Raw. Ziggler, it doesn't really matter where Ziggler ends up. You know you're going to get some good work out of him. I think Ambrose, it's very important for Ambrose to be on Raw on the main show. Also with the Shield on that show as well. The other members from the Shield, that's important for future storylines down the way. Baron Corbin, possibly a slightly bit more faster out of the blocks than Apollo Crews. So let's put him on Raw and see how he gets on. And then Del Rio is 50-50 SmackDown Raw. It doesn't really matter where Del Rio ends up, but he can be a top guy on any brand. So Raw is shaping up quite nicely, but wait till you see what's coming up for SmackDown. Starting off with Cesaro, and he's gaining ever more popularity with his Cesaro section. And on top of that, we're going to throw in Kev, Sammy, and Randy Orton. Again, Randy Orton, a SmackDown original. I think he was. Leave a comment. Was he? I don't know. And The Miz, of course, as well. The IC title as the champion. He'll go on SmackDown, in my opinion. So let's keep the IC title on SmackDown. There's your 5 reasons right up the top. Well, not counting The Miz. But the return of Randy Orton, Sami Zayn, Cesaro, and Kevin Owens will make most of the hardcore wrestling fans watch SmackDown just on that fact alone. Now we're just going to finish off the rest of the Raw roster. First of all, let's just throw Jericho on Raw. The consummate professional. I think he's better on Raw. Rusev, the United States champion. So I think the United States championship is separate to IC. It's got to be on separate shows, obviously. So Rusev goes on Raw. I'm sorry to say that the Big Show and Kane still exist in this world. So the Big Show and Kane just... You could separate them. That's probably the best separation we could hope for. But let's just throw them on Raw again. They need big men. And then you can throw in Bo Dallas, Slater, and Curtis Axel, and a few other jobbers to kind of fill out the roster. And there you have it. You have Stephanie's Raw, Shane's SmackDown, and a whole new era with a whole new matches, possibilities, and feuds on the horizon. Who knows where this will go. But, Will, some of you may be saying, you've forgotten 2 of the biggest superstars on the roster right now. What are you playing at? Well, don't worry about it. I've got you covered. So, I think, obviously, Brock Lesnar, the most prolific, the most prolific man on the roster right now, obviously goes onto Raw. He's a ratings boost, he's a crowd boost, he's a pay-per-view buy rate boost. He's got to be on Raw, in my opinion, which leads the perfect opportunity for Taker to go back to his spiritual home, in quotation marks, SmackDown, where he helped make that brand what it was. Maybe he can do it again when he returns for that one time a year for his WrestleMania run. But if the gong goes off on SmackDown, that's going to bring a lot of eyes towards SmackDown. Again, pushing that second brand a bit more than Raw. Now, that's all very well and good, but that also begs the question, what about the NXT guys? Well, surely you can fill some spots to beef out that roster with some NXT lads, and of course you can. So very first up, Finn Balor to Raw. Like I said earlier about the Bullet Club and AJ Styles being on Raw, this means that, in my opinion, he's the biggest star in NXT. The fans know him. Let's put him on Raw. The red and the black would also fit well with the Raw dynamic, I think. It won't take too long as well before Samoa Joe is leaving NXT, in my opinion, to go to the main roster. He's been wrestling in America his whole life. He knows the style. He shouldn't be in developmental. He should be a monster heel on the main roster. And I think he'll be put onto SmackDown. Now, because the Divas are on Raw, that obviously logically means that Bayley will go onto Raw with them. She'll be the first call-up, probably. Hopefully she deserves it. She's way overdue for it. Mojo Rawley, there's been talk of Mojo Rawley joining his fellow hype bro. Oh my god, Zack Ryder on the main roster. Zack Ryder, as you saw earlier, I put him on SmackDown with the other jobbers. And well, SmackDown's the home of the tag team, so they can continue their shtick on SmackDown. Speaking of tag teams, possibly the best wrestling tag team in WWE right now is, of course, American Alpha. Chad Gable, Jason Jordan, great stuff out of them, and they would really make that tag team division on SmackDown really competitive. Austin Aries probably won't spend too much time longer in NXT. He can come up maybe after SummerSlam. He can go to Raw. Keep him and Joe separate because we've already seen them obviously in NXT, and we want to keep them separate for now. He can maybe feud with AJ, maybe, even though it's the same kind of thing with TNA and Balor as well, and many others. Now, just like back in the day, no one is safe. So in this situation, neither are the announcers, and unfortunately, I think it's going to be John O'Clock, Maggle, and Byron on Raw, and hopefully Mauro and Jerry Lawler, who's getting back to his heel king gimmick, and he's doing kind of well at it compared to the stupid one-liners he was coming out with before. And you can throw Corey Graves on that to make a 3-man team if you want. That's pretty much it. And just to summarize, the champions here are Roman Reigns, Charlotte, and Rusev, the United States champion, all on Raw. While on SmackDown, we have just 2, Miz as the IC champion and New Day as the tag team champions. You can now, if you want, vote for, if you want to bring in a new title, you can bring in maybe the light heavyweight championship. I know there's been a lot of talk about that, or the cruiserweight championship, whatever way you want to call it. They could possibly bring back the European title. That's less likely. They're probably going to look for a more prestigious title. There is only one if they can bring it back, and it wouldn't make sense. But to bring back the big gold belt would be the other move that they could do. But they've just unified it 2.5, nearly 3 years ago, and it's too soon to kind of non-unify them, whatever that word would be. Just looking at the rosters a little bit, SmackDown is kind of a bit top heavy. So if you want, maybe the Wyatts can go over to Raw to maybe battle with the club. That'd be a good faction war. But other than that, I think that's a pretty good balanced split down the middle. Of course, the two GMs, and SmackDown is very heavy on unique talent. So that's my fantasy draft boxed off in the bag. There's a few nice lineups in there, I think you'll agree, and very interesting to think that if some of these may happen in real life, which way they're going to go with it. Especially maybe the Finn Balor, Enzo, Cass, Kev, Sammy, these kind of lads. Very interesting. And the women's division, will they split them or will they keep them all on one show? I hope you enjoyed, guys. I hope I'll see you in the next one. Leave a comment or reply to every single one of them. I love it. I will see you soon. Take it easy.